Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slade, and today we're going to talk about Raw 2020, the Raw's year in review. So there's a lot to get through when it comes to Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw started out strong. Um, one of the, but it kind of ended strong, kinda, but it was rough, very rough year. Obviously, the pandemic crushed Raw, crushed it, killed it dead. It didn't necessarily kill SmackDown, but it murdered Raw. You know, the pandemic really did Raw dirty. Raw was down bad. Raw's in the mud. But Raw, there has been some good things about Raw. Start off with some good things. The run of Drew McIntyre has been very good. He has been great as a flag bearer for Monday Night Raw in WWE as the WWE champion. He's been very good. Randy Orton has also been very, very good. He's been excellent. The feud with Edge was excellent stuff. Top-notch television. I enjoyed thoroughly everything that they did. I've really enjoyed the Hurt Business and the formulation of the Hurt Business. MVP coming back at the Royal Rumble. And we really kind of wanted the MVP and Lashley to team up. You know, because they teamed up in TNA. What was it called? The Beatdown Clan? Oh, God. Ugh. And there's with Kenny King. But Kenny King is cool, though. I like Kenny King. But, hey, we get Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin in this. So I'm tight with this right here. You know, the Hurt Business has been fantastic stuff. Four well-dressed, almost mob-like bad guys, but they're also incredibly petty. You know, like if you're not wearing a Hurt Business shirt, they want to rip your shirt off of you. They be pouring coffee on guys, pouring milk on a guy. You know, it's just being bullies. And also just being cool at the same time. So those have kind of been the shining stars of Raw. You know, the Firefly Funhouse when Bray came over and near the end of the year was very good. You know, the Fiend stuff is always good. But then some of the other things on Raw. Raw has been tilted negative for a long time because a lot of their attempts to make the show interesting fell very, very flat. Very, very flat. Retribution, despite the fact that I honestly don't mind. I like the group because it has a good idea. That these are the people, the outcasts of the WWE, the people that that WWE doesn't see as stars. You know, they all band together to fight against the system. It's almost like, you know, these same guys have the same grievance as Daniel Bryan and CM Punk before them and Kevin Owens and all the Ring of Honor guys who came into WWE and cut this promo on John Cena that I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not the typical WWE superstar. That to the next level, where basically they formed this organization like a cult almost of these people, and they want to, you know, incite revenge on the WWE for not seeing them as stars. But it was, of course, viewed negatively from the beginning. Never really given a chance to get started because, you know, people were just trying to figure out who was in the group. And then once they figured out who was in the group, they were just like, oh, no, this is dumb. That's dumb. I don't know. Everything's dumb. And they never really got off the ground. And, of course, they jobbed them out a lot, too. That didn't help. They were jobbing them out mostly to the Hurt Business, which didn't help them at all. But, you know, Retribution had barely gotten started. Another thing that Raw tried to make their third hour more interesting was Raw Underground. That was another thing that was ridiculed from the beginning. Raw Underground never gave it a chance. Like, as soon as these people saw what it was, you know, fake-ass Fight Club, shaky cameras, bad. I mean, the shaky cameras and stuff like that is just absolutely the truth. You know, you can't blame people for bringing up, you know, your bad camera work. I'm not going to blame people for that. You know, shitting on the idea without letting it fully develop. You know, yeah, I can shit on that, but I'm not going to shit on people who are absolutely correct about, you know, you not being able to see the action because they want to cut the cameras. Now, they did do some good stuff in Raw Underground. You know, Shayna Baszler went down there and busted up some people. And, you know, the Hurt Business took over Raw Underground one time. And it looked like they were going to do something very special with them in Raw Underground. And obviously they dropped it almost immediately. The very next week, it was back to normal. Then, of course, the Raw Underground ended up creating its own sort of champion in Dabba-Kato, who was Babatunde in Evolve and NXT, I should say. They kind of had him as being like a world beater in Raw Underground, and then he just gets smashed by Braun Strowman, and that was like the end of Raw Underground. It's like he was like Goro from Mortal Kombat, and he just got, he got stomped. But what's the forearm target? Kentaro. He just kind of got, so it was like Goro against Kentaro, and then Goro gets stomped, and Shane was just kind of like rats. That's it. And threw his horse racing tickets in the air like, darn that Braun Strowman. And Raw Underground has not been around since. But those are two, ideas that people shit on from the beginning. They never really gave them a chance. WWE they botched the launching of these things anyway, because they have been they promoted it. Like, they talked about, there's going to be a new faction and a new concept brought to Monday Night Raw, instead of just doing it, right? They promoted all this new stuff and gave people the opportunity to shit on it from the beginning. And then people were like, Raw Underground is going to last 2 weeks. I think it lasted 6. And then people thought it was going to be like Brawl for All. It was nothing like Brawl for All, actually. So it was just a lot of negativity. And that's just watching WWE in general. It's just, especially if you're on Twitter or on YouTube, it's very, very negative. It is unyieldingly negative. It's like, it's negative, and then you have to talk to somebody, usually one-on-one or something, in order to find some positivity in it. It's just unyieldingly negative. Like, if somebody comes out with a crooked eyebrow, he's buried. He'll never get over. Nobody's over. There are no stars. All they care about is the legends, and then they take the legends away. They don't care about the past anymore. It's like constantly with the same shit again and again. That's something that you can't change, though, because that's something that WWE has to go through in general. But it is very difficult to enjoy Raw when you have so much negativity floating around. So also another positive thing, I'll give this a positive thing. I'll give this a thumbs up. Becky Lynch got pregnant, so she had to leave. I'll give this a thumbs up. 1, because I was tired of Becky Lynch anyway, and she needed to go away. 2, I am always going to support people having babies. Have more babies. 3, it opened up spots for other people. Now, they did the silly Money in the Bank gimmick. We had the cinematic Money in the Bank match. Then they gave the Money in the Bank to Asuka. And then Asuka carried the brand from that point forward. Asuka and Kairi Sane against Bayley and Sasha Banks was really good stuff. It was kind of weirdly written, though, because Kairi Sane's contract expired right in the middle of the storyline. So they had to write her off in the middle of the storyline. So she didn't get any, she didn't get any satisfaction. Usually in these sort of storylines, Kairi Sane, before she leaves it was a pandemic, so that didn't help. But she would have, helped Asuka win in the end. Then they, hug or whatever, and then Kairi Sane retires and goes away. But because Kairi Sane had to retire, she went to go back to Japan. She got married and all that stuff. That left Asuka pretty much by herself and having to wrestle Sasha Banks and Sasha Banks and Bayley. And that was really her carrying the division. And I'm glad they really chose her to do it, because despite the fact that Asuka's English is not good, her character has evolved to the point where she doesn't need to speak English anymore. She speaks Asuka now. That's so strange, where she's like this crazy mix of, frenetic energy, and it works. I don't know how it works, but it works. Like nobody cares if Asuka can't talk anymore. They get the sentiment, and she's an engaging personality, because she looks very silly and she gets really into everything. She gets very excited about things, and she works as a babyface. They have not done a good job of creating storylines for her. They have not given her a dragon to slay. They haven't given her somebody to feud with. They keep putting her in fucking tag teams. But she's done a good job of carrying the brand. Being the face of the brand, being the face of the women's division, because she is the best wrestler on the roster outside of Shayna Baszler. But she has been doing a great job. She's been phenomenal. Unfortunately, they have not done, the Raw women's division has not benefited at all from some of the decisions that they've made. For instance, breaking up the Iconics. Something that was very, very dumb. That was very dumb. I get why they did it. They want to see what each woman has individually. But ultimately, breaking up the Iconics basically just created two lower card acts especially when you didn't have a lot of tag teams in the beginning. You didn't really add to the roster because Peyton Royce is not doing anything. And then you threw her in the tag team with Lacey Evans. Then you brought Lacey Evans over. She wasn't doing anything. You haven't fulfilled the real look. Like, it'd have been one thing if we just wanted to see what Peyton Royce has got, and then she was the focal point of the show for a little bit. Like they did with Selena Vega. Like when they took Selena Vega's group from her, they was like, okay, let's see what Selena Vega can do. They had her wrestling matches and cutting promos, and she got to wrestle Asuka and all that type of stuff. They got to see what she can do. They didn't do the same thing for Peyton Royce. They basically turned Peyton Royce heel and then pushed her into the broom closet. Oh yeah, you're in there. You're going to go work main event. Go work with Nikki Cross on main event. Did the same thing to Nikki Cross too, by the way. Changed her theme music, changed everything about her. She went and lost weight. She got in better shape. And they still shoved her into main event. Like, go into the broom closet. Like, all these people Asuka could be wrestling and having badass matches with, they not even put any effort into it. The tag team division and the women's division, outside of Asuka, the women's tag team division as well, has been absolutely abhorrent on Raw. There is no effort put into the tag team division on Raw. Outside of the Street Profits, the only team that was able to get over, okay, they beat everybody else. They didn't beat the Street Profits to death, but they beat everybody else 100 times over, including the Hurt Business, who are the tag team champions now, in the New Day. There's no stars in the tag team division. They didn't even try to make any outside of one team. They push one person and one team at a time. One person. Asuka can be a star, sure, but not in comparison to Bayley and Sasha Banks. She's going to lose to them a lot. But she gets to be a star. She gets to be by herself. McIntyre can be a star. Asuka, Street Profits. That's it. Everybody else, you're either in the broom closet or you're waiting for an opportunity to get pushed into the closet. Ricochet, Ali, Retribution. Well, they did give us a really good Apollo Crews run, which I tip my hat to them for that, because I enjoyed the Apollo Crews United States Championship run and his feud with the Hurt Business. I really enjoyed that, and I appreciated it too, because it was an opportunity for a guy who usually didn't get an opportunity, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought he did good. He hasn't done shit since they moved him to SmackDown, but I thought he did good in that role, and I think he would have been a good contender going forward. Of course, not to continue wrestling Lashley, but then they brought in Keith Lee, so they really didn't need him anyway. But he would have been a good, solid mid-card babyface. I think he would have really did really good, as far as I'm concerned. But I guess my opinion doesn't matter. But I enjoyed the Apollo Crews run, so I'll give them that. And I'm enjoying the Lashley run and the Hurt Business stuff. But they haven't done a good job of making other people look like stars. Tag team division has been really bad. Really bad. How the treatment of Andrade and Angel Garza, absolutely abysmal. The treatment of Humberto Carrillo, abysmal. The treatment of Ricochet, disappointing, disgusting. The treatment of Jeff Hardy, just, if you go to Raw is like the dead zone. People who might get pushed on SmackDown, who's got an opportunity. Hell, even Sheamus is being a soccer ball on Raw. They don't push. They push one person at a time. That's it. One person at a time. Everybody else is a victim. You can't run a show like that. You certainly can't run a 3-hour show like that. But Becky Lynch's pregnancy opened the door for other people, and they let those other people step in. They let Asuka step in and take that spot. They kind of gave a bit of a spotlight to Zelina Vega, but mostly it was just Bayley and Sasha Banks. They could have done more. They could have used Nikki Cross in that spot. They brought up Bianca Belair for Raw. She didn't do anything. I think she might have just had a Raw debut match, which, I mean, she just beat Zelina Vega, and then she disappeared, and she went into the broom closet, and then she ended up on SmackDown, where she got pushed back into the broom closet. I should just call it the attic. Most people are like, what the hell is the broom closet? Y'all not old enough to know what a broom closet is. But let's call it the attic. The attic. She pushed her into the attic. You put her in a box, sealed it, put it in the attic. You know, like all the old clothes and the old coats and everything. You know, like you're an old toy already. They did this really, really long Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio storyline, which was schizophrenic. Had a lot of potential. Had some very, very good matches. Matches I can't complain about. Promos, can't really complain about those either. I really liked the Seth Rollins promos on Raw. You know, especially one when he really got into the face of Tom for laughing and, you know, rooting for, I think it was Dominic or Ray, you know, and Seth Rollins kind of decided to get in the face of Tom Phillips, and the whole the tease with Samoa Joe, the tease that they were going to have Samoa Joe fight Seth Rollins. I loved that shit. That was some of the best shit about Raw. Now, the eye for an eye stipulation was absolutely silly, but I enjoyed seeing Dominic and Seth Rollins tear it up. You know, Ray and Rollins tearing it up. That was really good stuff. You know, they had some opportunities there with Aleister Black. Then they dropped the ball with him, and then they fired his wife. That wasn't pretty. That's going to be in the SmackDown review, because Zelina Vega was on SmackDown when she got fired. But you know, another thing that I should have brought this up from the beginning is not long after WrestleMania, Paul Heyman was fired from being the executive vice president of Raw. That meant that there was going to be a complete talent change. Almost all of the acts that Paul Heyman was using, Humberto Carrillo, Apollo Crews, all of those people were basically shelved. And along with, you know, there were like 20 people fired, you know, some of whom were longtime regulars like Heath Slater and Zack Ryder, who, you know, Heath Slater had that excellent promo when he came back, you know, for that one night with Drew McIntyre. You know, when he got to tell Drew that he was a bad friend and Drew didn't stand up for him. That was fantastic shit. That was excellent stuff, man. That was really job-saving stuff, if you ask me. But I guess the Impact deal was already done at that point. But that was excellent. But that was what shifted Raw sharp downwards. Like, you know, when they got rid of Heyman, not that Heyman was doing such a fabulous job on Raw. He was kind of writing some bullshit. But things got progressively worse. You know, because they stopped featuring new talent. They just start featuring the same guys in lengthier segments every week. Like, Seth Rollins' promos got longer. You know, Randy Orton's promos got longer. You know, they guys started having the same matches over and over again. I couldn't tell what week it was. You know, at least with Heyman, they were doing different things with different people. And, you know, Heyman was always focusing on new talent. And then there was a bunch of people drinking the Heyman Kool-Aid. And all the people who were drinking the Heyman Kool-Aid got buried, essentially. Zelina Vega, Aleister Black, Apollo Crews. You know, they moved the Street Profits to SmackDown. So, you know, pretty much everybody who was drinking the Heyman Kool-Aid, they got the axe. AJ Styles wanted to get off of Raw because he didn't like Paul Heyman. That damaged Raw too, because of course they ended up sending him back to Raw later in the year, but they just didn't want him. He didn't want to be on Raw. It was a mess, and Raw never recovered from that. That's the big story of Raw's 2020 is when Heyman left, a lot of Raw changed. A lot of the pieces that might have been interesting were taken off the board. And that is, I don't understand it. I don't understand the internal politics of WWE where if a talent buys into what Paul Heyman is selling, like all of a sudden we have to bury him. We have to push him to the side. We have to treat him like shit. And it seems like everybody except the Street Profits that Paul Heyman liked and wanted to put on the show disappeared. Andrade, Angel Garza, Apollo Crews, Aleister Black, Humberto Carrillo. All of these people, and yes, I understand. They weren't drawing. Heyman was using them a lot. The ratings were going down. They weren't drawing. But you kind of have to go through, that's the growing pains. You have to go through that. You have to push through the fact that they're not drawing right now in the hopes that they will draw in the future. But they just killed them. They just killed it. They killed the entire project of trying to build a future for Monday Night Raw. They just had Drew McIntyre beat Andrade and Angel Garza every single week. I think he even beat him in a handicap match. And it just had Zelina Vega standing outside in the ring, pounding the ring apron, not trying to help her guys win, not doing anything. Then they did something similar to Lashley, where they had the Lana Lashley thing. They broke that up. Then they fired Rusev, which, of course, there was no reason for Lana and Lashley to continue doing their thing if Rusev not there anymore. The Liv Morgan stuff, what he was doing with Liv Morgan, they just put her back in the Riot Squad, shipped her to SmackDown. Everything that Paul Heyman did, they undid it. They tried to reverse course on everything Paul Heyman did. And that damages Raw. That damaged the hell out of Raw. Because you had people sort of trying to buy into some of these guys. They were protecting Apollo Crews and they were protecting Aleister Black. They were trying to treat these guys like top stars. People were getting interested. I used to see fan art. Believe it or not, I used to see fan art of Zelina Vega, Andrade, and Angel Garza. There were people drawing pictures of them together. Like Sicario or something, right? And then, 2 weeks later, they get knocked around like the Three Stooges, and people just don't think they're cool anymore. So it's like you had something that people were invested in and kind of liked and thought was natural, and not just you throwing three Mexicans together, even though I think Zelina Vega is Puerto Rican. But you had something that felt natural, that people liked, and then you killed it. You just killed it for no reason. So many people like Aleister Black. You killed him for no reason. People were starting to like Apollo Crews, especially that he was getting pushed. There was a lot of people that were already fans. But they were kind of like, okay, they're finally starting to respect him and show what he can do. Killed it. Just killed it. Killed all of it. And it's not right. Humberto Carrillo, another one, just killed it. And then they didn't replace it with anything. They just killed it and didn't bother to replace him with anything. So that was even worse. It's now not only do you start pushing, but you stopped and then just decided, you know what? Not going to do it. Not going to put anything in its place. We're just going to leave it bare, We're not going to just it'd have been one thing if we say, okay, well, this person isn't a draw. We're going to flip this person. Or we're going to push this person to the side, replace them with somebody else. Didn't even do that. They basically just said, okay, Apollo Crews goes off TV. We're not going to replace him with anybody. Lashley just going to have the title and do nothing. Okay, we're going to ship the Street Profits to SmackDown. Not going to really replace them with anybody. Except to, put it on the New Day. We'll figure out what we do after that. It was such a disgusting issue. And it all came from Paul Heyman getting fired. And then they did the thing that really pissed me off, which they did these 10 weeks of Lana going through the table. telling this story of Lana not being deserving of being on a Survivor Series team, not deserving of being a woman wrestler in WWE, building this story up between Nia Jax and Lana. And when it came time to pay that story off, they decided, nope, Charlotte. We finally got a break from Charlotte because, for some reason we had Charlotte as the NXT champion being on Raw, which was so stupid. That was so stupid. And I get that Triple H said, like, oh, there was a plan. There was a plan. And then the pandemic ruined the plan. So then we just flew from the from the seat of our pants from that point, but I don't believe him. Okay, I don't believe him. Triple H is trying to sell me shit, but I can smell it through the bag. He's full of shit. There was no plan. Okay? At best, the plan was move Charlotte to NXT to draw ratings. And it didn't work. That was like the best plan that he probably had. But ultimately, that really damaged the women's division. But the Lana thing is you wasted everybody's time. You wasted everybody's time putting this focus on Lana. Trying to show us that Lana really can work. Trying to show us that Lana really might actually have some grit and some determination. And then you threw it away. Because the old man has this obsession with Charlotte. And look, I love Charlotte. I think Charlotte is great. I think Charlotte is legit one of the best female wrestlers in the world. Probably she's one of the best, and she's not number 2. Okay? So, but I think she's overpushed. And I think most other people will agree with that. Charlotte is at the point where she doesn't need a title. She's the Randy Orton of the women's division. Randy Orton doesn't need to be the champion, neither does Charlotte. Okay? Charlotte could have feuded with somebody else without the title. We didn't need Charlotte in this role. But the old man is obsessed with Charlotte. So we back with Charlotte. And now, she's been tethered to Asuka again. So now we're stuck with this storyline. And yes, they did a good job of explaining that it was Nia Jax that injured Charlotte in the first place. But now it's like, okay, what do we do with Lana? What do we do with Lana? It's the same thing that you had with Liv Morgan, where they went through all this trouble of building up this new Liv Morgan, and then they just put her back in the Riot Squad. So now you want to build up this whole new thing with Lana, and now you're just going to throw Lana back into the corner as a manager? What was all the character development for? What was all the character development for Aleister Black and Apollo Crews for? If it's just going to be thrown away. That has been the death knell for Raw. Is that you get you invested in certain things for whatever reason. And it's not always the good Paul Heyman ideas. Sometimes it's other things. And they just throw it away. That's been the story of Raw in 2020. They are purposely driving in the mud. It's like sometimes you get stuck in the mud because you didn't see it. It's like Raw has a Ferrari that they purposely drove off-road in the middle of the mud, in the middle of the swamp. And then they're surprised, like, the tires got stuck. It's like you were driving a Ferrari. Look at all this talent that you had. All of this talent. Most of it young. Most of these people under the age of 40. You purposefully drove that Ferrari into the mud. You did that on purpose. Right? And it's not fair. It really damaged the brand. And I understand why people don't watch it. I can completely understand why people don't watch Raw. Hell, I don't even want to watch Raw sometimes. And I'm not one of those YouTubers or those podcasters that will say, oh, I wouldn't watch Raw if I don't do the show. Because I'm not one of those people. I would watch it anyway. I've watched Raw in worse shape than this. 95. That's the benchmark. Raw 1995. Also, Raw in 1993 wasn't that good. But Raw in 1995 was the shits. And that was only like 1 hour. Okay? Man, Raw in 95 was the shits. Raw today at least has good matches and good interesting angles and stuff like that. It's just very hard to sit through because it's the same shit all the time. It's a month of McIntyre pinning the Miz. It's a month of Miz TV promos. It's a month of Asuka running around in circles, speaking Asuka, and having no opponents to wrestle, and just being out there. A month of Lana going through tables because we don't know what else to do with her, and then it's just bullshit until we can get Charlotte back. A month of New Day, doing New Day, not progressing, not doing anything different. A month of Retribution, not doing anything different. A month of the Hurt Business, not doing anything different. A month of, Keith Lee being lost in the shuffle, and Sheamus not being lost in the shuffle, and Matt Hardy, not Matt Hardy, but Matt Riddle being lost in the shuffle, and Jeff Hardy, for some reason, who is a fucking legend, is somehow lost in the shuffle, and not being made to look legit. It's just, I mean, I don't know what to say. What can you say other than Raw is doing it to itself? All of these wounds are self-inflicted when it comes to Raw. It's not the talent. They got the talent. Maybe you can say, oh, the talent aren't stars. That's a matter of opinion. But it's also, you can't tell me that most of these people were even given a chance. Most of them have never even been given a chance. And anything where they feel like they might naturally belong, they're taken out of it. Nikki Cross fully belongs in the storyline with Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss. She's not involved at all for no reason. She's just not involved. Tag team division, you have Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans. Okay, it's a bullshit tag team, but they're not involved. Ricochet, it took a long time for him to get involved with this whole Retribution thing. For a long time, he wasn't doing anything. You have a tag team division. You have Lucha House Party. You don't use them. What is it? What are we doing? What kind of show are we running here? Where we got guys doing 15, 20-minute promos. John Morrison, despite the fact that he's a little bit older, is still a very good worker. Why are we not using him? We're not even using Miz and Morrison as a tag team. We're not doing anything. We're just spinning our wheels with the same guys. And this doesn't help. When people talk about, oh, Drew McIntyre isn't a draw, blah, 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 blah. Drew is fine on his own. It's what the hell are you doing on the other side? All you have to do, and I say this about Asuka, because it's true. And it's also true of the Hurt Business. All you have to do is put somebody else on the other side of the ring. That's all you got to do. Successfully put somebody else on the other side of the ring and let them do what they do. And I don't just mean just have matches. What I mean is put an antagonist or a protagonist on the other side of the ring, somebody they can work off of, somebody that they can bounce off of. They refuse to do even that. They have refused to do even that. That is the bare minimum. Even fucking indie promotions can take a champion and build up a nobody just for that night through a promo, just so the champion can fight them. WWE doesn't even do that. They won't take, for one night, somebody, put them on the other side of the ring of Drew McIntyre, let them banter and cut promos, and then building them up for they can have a match later. Even if Drew McIntyre is just going to win. Fine. But at least do that. They won't even do that. They won't even do that for Asuka. They won't do it for the Hurt Business. They won't do it for anybody. They are purposefully tanking this show. And I think they're doing this shit because they want to get off of USA or they want more money. Okay? It's one or the other. And that's a conspiracy theory. That's speculation. That's conspiracy theory. It's not news. But I think that they straight up don't give a shit about USA. And they probably want off that network. Why else would they be doing purposefully tanking their own shit? When you had something that people were involved in, even if you personally didn't like it, you had something that people were involved in, and then you yank it from up under them. It just doesn't make any sense. You can't run a show like that. You can't keep changing the coaches and then think the team is going to win. It just can't work. You can't keep changing the staff and think the team's going to win. But that's Raw's review, man. Raw has some good things about it. It had a lot of opportunities with Charlotte and Becky Lynch being gone. They didn't do anything except for go with the other two horsewomen. So Asuka maybe got the belt, but she didn't get to have the run. You know, Shayna Baszler got kicked to the curb. Nia Jax got kicked to the curb. Peyton Royce got kicked to the curb. Nikki Cross got kicked to the curb. Alexa Bliss got moved on into the feud with The Fiend, which is fantastic. All that stuff is great. You know, they didn't do anything. They didn't utilize that. You know, they're not utilizing the Hurt Business to their fullest extent. They're not utilizing the Retribution to their fullest extent. They're not utilizing anything to its maximum capabilities. They botched, and I should have said this from the beginning because this is just one of the many things. They botched the Keith Lee debut. You know, having him come out fully shaved in a skirt with bad music. You know, that was, even if it was, oh, he's feuding with Randy Orton and he beat Randy Orton. Even so, the presentation was so garbage that it turned people off. People stopped being excited because the presentation of what you did was so bad. All you had to do was wait a month for him to get new music. You know, wait several weeks for him to get new music. Why did he shave? Why is he wearing a singlet? You know, it's just silly stuff like that Raw has done. You know, it's like that meme, right? Where you got the person on the bike and then they bend over and put a stick in the spoke and they fall over and then they blame it on somebody else. That's Raw. You know, they blaming it on literally anything. The news, the pandemic, whatever. When in reality, it's them. They've had things. I've seen plenty of people that are excited about certain things about Raw. The Hurt Business, for instance. The Zelina Vega, Andrade, Angel Garza group. You know, even some people were excited about Retribution once Mustafa Ali turned heel. They were like, okay, good, now we can talk about this. But then at every single turn, they killed it. They killed it. In one way or another. Either they kill it by putting it in a box and throwing it in the attic, or they kill it by beating them over and over and over and over and over again on TV. Or they kill it by not referencing it, paying it no attention anymore. Or they kill it by just replacing somebody with somebody else. You know? But it's been really sad. And it's not just they don't have any faith in the young talent. They don't really have faith in their established talent either. Because Sheamus and Jeff Hardy came from SmackDown from a hot feud when they were feuding with each other. And it was great. And then they get moved to Raw and they're fucking job guys. What the fuck? You can't even protect the two guys you were pushing on a different brand? That's brain dead. Like I can't believe it's the same people running Raw and SmackDown. I can't believe it. When you look at Raw and you look at SmackDown, I can't believe it's the same people. I refuse to believe it. There's obviously something going on Raw. Raw needs a whole new reboot. They need something completely different. I think they need to run these joints like completely different divisions. Like they need to not share executive vice presidents, and they need to have their own thing. Like NXT is its own thing where, Vince doesn't really get his fingers on much of that. So you can blame everything stupid on NXT to Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and that's click business. But for Bruce Pritchard to be over Raw and SmackDown, and for the quality of those shows to be so drastically different, it's an embarrassment. It's impossible. How could you be so bad on one thing and so good on another? The only excuse you could possibly have is if you're being bad on purpose. And that you're trying to say, USA doesn't want to pay us because they're probably still in the contract negotiations. USA doesn't want to pay. We're just going to cut bait and maybe go to Fox or go somewhere else and get the fuck out this contract so we don't care what happens. And that's basically what it looked like. And that's my conspiracy theory for 2021, is that they're probably going to announce at some point that Raw is going somewhere else. And that's kind of how it feels. Like they don't give a shit, because the $1 billion that Fox is giving them is definitely motivating them to put on the best SmackDown they can. They're not doing the same thing for Raw at all. They're not even trying. But thank you guys for listening to my year review of 2020 Monday Night Raw. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys again for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later.